John F. Johnson, president of Concordia University, Chicago. I've been president here since 2004 and moved here from serving an institution in St. Louis, Missouri. Concordia, being one of the universities of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod Concordia University system, has a prescribed process for the appointment of its presidents in terms of a search committee, in terms of recommendations of the Board of Regents of the university, the church body itself, and so forth. But career-wise, I came to be president here after serving for 14 years as president of Concordia Seminary in St. Louis, Missouri, and prior to that, as president of Concordia College, now Concordia University, in St. Paul, Minnesota. Before that, I was a dean, a department chairman, a classroom professor, and in that sense followed the sort of traditional academic route from teaching to administration into the presidency. PhD is in philosophy. I also have a doctorate in theology, and I combined both of those disciplines. I taught courses in what's called systematic theology and in philosophical theology. There is, of course, a formal kind of written position description, but in short, I am the Chief Executive Officer of the institution. As such, I serve as the Chief Executive Officer of the Board of Regents, the governing board of the institution. Typically, that involves oversight of all phases of the institution, academic, financial, student-related. In addition to serving as chief administrator of those areas, president these days spends a good bit of time in a kind of public relations function, representing the university to its different constituencies, our alumni, our financial supporters, the higher education community, the church community. And so I find myself traveling, speaking a lot to groups, advocating and articulating the mission and the purpose of the institution. We have, as most institutions do, a formal mission statement, which to me is more than just verbiage. It is that the university, as a Christian institution of higher education, seeks to form and to shape men and women to serve and to lead in a rapidly changing society. And so the purpose of Concordia is to provide the knowledge and the skills to exercise leadership in the community. There is in our tradition a word that is utilized a lot. The word is vocation. And for a lot of people, vocation means a job, an occupation. But for us, vocation is a calling, whether one is serving in as a computer operator or a lawyer or a business person or an accountant or whatever. Whatever position one is in, we consider that a calling, a sphere in which we can serve God and one another. And so for a university like Concordia, our primary responsibility is preparing students to serve. And that involves, of course, their academic background, gaining knowledge of the world. It involves the development of interpersonal relationships and skills. It involves spiritual development, all of those kinds of things. When I came here 5 years ago, one of my priorities was for the institution to develop a strategic plan, which really did not exist at Concordia. In other words, a blueprint for where we wanted to be. In this case, it was basically a 7-year plan. And we're in about the 4th year of that plan. A lot of objectives have been met. For example, in terms of new graduate programs through our graduate college, terms of enrollment growth, which has been phenomenal in the last 2 years or so for us, terms of stabilizing the institution financially. For the future, I want us to follow the plan, to work the plan, which I think will take Concordia in even to a greater level. It's also the case in the next couple of years that we need to really concentrate on some challenges that the growth that we've experienced are presenting. Student enrollment growth carries with it the need for more classroom space, parking issues, residence hall limitations, and all of that kind of thing. And as I expect we continue to grow, one of the real goals that I have for the university is to meet those challenges and problems in light of our growth and continue to grow. There's probably no such thing as a typical week, but I could reflect on this week, at least so far. On Mondays, I have the beginning of a series of one-on-one meetings with each of the vice presidents of the institution. They spend time with me, bringing me up to date on what's happening in their various areas of or divisions, sharing with me problems that they may be facing, and that helps keep a pulse on what's happening at the university in terms of the senior administrative level. So those one-on-one meetings go through usually the first 3 days of each week. We also have a president's cabinet here, which is comprised of the vice presidents of the university. We meet every other Monday from 2 to 3 hours and I develop the agenda for that to talk about what's happening at the university and what we should be keeping our eyes on in terms of decisions and policies. It's also the case that during a typical week, I will meet with various groups. This week, again, as an example, yesterday I had a day-long meeting with a group of people who are involved in our upcoming fundraising campaign. Members of the Oak Park River Forest community, members of the campus community. A typical week will also involve just some reading, trying to keep abreast of what's happening in the wider world of higher education. A typical week will often involve meeting with a student who has a concern that they feel is not being adequately addressed. Typical week will also involve some time, as today, in preparing for a presentation that I'm giving at a conference over the weekend in Florida. There's really no such thing perhaps as a typical week, but certainly all weeks involve a lot of meetings and a lot of conversation and a lot of opportunities to talk with people about the university. Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. One is that we have very dedicated, hardworking people here in our admissions office, in our division of enrollment, and they have worked tirelessly telling the story of Concordia to prospective students, and we're in part seeing a payoff from that effort. But I think even more importantly is what a great story Concordia has to tell prospective students and families. I think that really is what our growth can be attributable to. A quality university, one whose size permits students and faculty and staff to really get to know one another, for there to be some personal attention. I think our location, soon after I came here, I led the university in changing its name to Concordia University Chicago, and more and more we're connecting our location here with the opportunities in Chicago for internships, for cultural opportunities, things like that. That's contributed to our growth as well. So we have a number of things that students and families who are looking for a smaller size university that has a commitment to Christian values. We're finding that as we share that with more and more people, that our enrollment is growing.
All right, cool. You cut it.
How I hope to keep the campus focused on its mission is to constantly remind people what the mission is, what our core values are, what the vision for the future of the university is, and to endeavor to make sure that all of our programs are related to that mission. There are a lot of things that Concordia University could do in terms of adding new programs and so forth, to just increase our enrollment, to bring in more tuition revenue or whatever. But if those programs are not connected to the mission, then they quickly become irrelevant. And so I see myself in a sense and as constantly being the person to connect or to remind people to connect what we do here with the mission and the vision of the institution.